23rd of September 2020. Right, Honourable Speaker, to date, the Minister of Finance has not issued the certificate. Right, Honourable Speaker, therefore, I beg to move under Rule 1174 of our Rules of Procedure and Section 76(4), subsection 4 of the Public Finance Management Act 2015 as amended, so that the certificate is deemed to have been issued from the date of request, since 60 days, mandatory 60 days provided by the law has since elapsed, and the Minister has failed to fulfill his obligation. Based on that, right, Honourable Speaker, I therefore beg to move that a bill entitled the Real Estate Agents Bill 2021 be read the first time. I beg to move.
I remember, I think since you raised the procedural matter before the reading of the first reading of your bill, you would have allowed me an opportunity to make it clear that under the rules you are entitled to proceed the way you are proceeding, which would have now given you good clearance to proceed. That was notwithstanding, the member raises an important point, but honourable members, I still think the 60 days which is in the rules, Rules 117, sub-rule 4, should not be taken that once you have written, you now keep quiet about it and wait for 60 days. There should be some prompting in between, so that there is a reminder to the Minister of Finance that no, we haven't received, so at the lapse of 60 days, automatically, when you come, you have evidence that there's been no reaction. But certainly, the date of 27th September of last year is way too far. There could not have been any excuse under these circumstances for us to delay any further with the members' right to proceed. So accordingly, that right is recognized and granted. The member has read this bill for the first time. It now stands therefore referred to the appropriate committee of physical infrastructure for expeditious handling, and you know that the timelines are changing rapidly, and we need to act on it. Committee chairperson, please act on this if it were possible. By end of April, we should be processing this bill so that we can have it to the benefit of those who are affected by these limitations in this sector. Thank you, honourable member.
Speaker,
the Real Estate Agents Bill 2020.
Thank you.
I beg to lay on table a copy of the bill.
Let the records capture that. Thank you. Next item.
Item number 4 on the order paper, statement by the leader of the opposition in response to the National Budget Framework paper for the financial 2021-22 to 2025-26.
The leader of the opposition, I gave some guidance on this matter yesterday. I have looked at a copy of your statement. It's quite big. I would request you to consider laying the rest of it on the table so that it's factored into the budget processing, but you can give a short statement on the content thereof. Thank you. Proceed, Madam.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Let me also start by first congratulating you on your victory in the recently concluded election, and I would also like to thank you for this opportunity. In accordance with Section 6E, subsection 2 and 4 of the Administration of Parliament Amendment Act 2006, as well as Rule 52 of the Rules of Procedure, The opposition in Parliament presents a response to the National Budget Framework Paper, financial year 2020-2021 to 2025-2026. Economy overview. Economic growth in financial year 2020-2021 was projected in the 2 to 3% range, and it's expected to improve further between 4 and 5% in the financial year 2021-2022. The economy is currently growing at 2.6% as compared to the expected 7%. It is reported that the size of the economy had grown to Uganda shillings 128.5 trillion in financial year 2018-2019 from Uganda shillings 120 trillion in financial year 2017-2018. Unfortunately, the growth was largely hinged on economic and human development inequalities. Several Ugandans continue to struggle to meet the average household monthly expenditures estimated at 325,800, translating into Uganda shillings 3.9 million annually. This is affirmed by the assertion that the average income per Ugandan is US dollars 825, about 3.05 million per year. Whereas there is projected reduction in domestic borrowing in financial year 2021-2022, the same cannot immediately solve the challenges associated with the current level of domestic borrowing. The reduction in domestic borrowing is only by 1% level. It's only by 1%, and this is not very substantial. The current loan portfolio invested into public investments that are characterized by diminishing returns, with Uganda's, each Ugandan shares a debt, the reduction in domestic borrowing is only by 1% and is not very substantial. The current loan portfolio is invested into public investments that are characterized by diminishing returns, with Uganda's population estimated at 45 million and total public debt of 58.45 trillion. Each Ugandan shares a debt burden of Uganda shillings 1.25 million. This debt burden is largely driven by the fact that the country cannot support its development agenda based on domestic revenues. For instance, in the 2021-2022 financial year, domestic revenue, that is Uganda Revenue Authority and local government collections, are projected to only raise 21.69 trillion of the total projected budget of 45.658 trillion. This means that domestic revenues will finance only 47.5% financing of projected national budgets. Besides, debt repayments take first call charge of domestic revenues. Whereas there is a projected reduction domestic borrowing, there are no signs that the government will soon reduce external borrowing. This is an indication that the country is heavily reliant on debt. In the absence of debt, the country would struggle to sustain itself. Besides, most of the loans are largely invested in non-productive sectors, subduing the transformation potential of productive sectors such as agriculture, mining, and tourism. Hence, there is need to focus more attention on productive sectors, for they present high potential for gainful employment, import substitution, and value chain improvement. Compliance. There is this table for budget framework paper format and content compliance. The table one, you will actually go through it, but you will realize that at least we are not so badly off, but there is also need for improvement in areas where we don't have information, like petroleum revenue. You will find there 000, like net present value of public debt. You will also find that there is no information, but you can go through that table, and there has been an improvement in content of the budget framework paper. Nonetheless, there are areas for improvement, and has been included. Then compliance to the Charter of Fiscal Responsibility. It has been noted that government has been increasing its expenses through the creation of additional administrative units, eroding the gains of additional revenues as a consequence. Currently, the fiscal deficit for financial year 2020-2021 is projected to reach 10.7% and decline to 7%, all above the Charter of Fiscal Responsibility threshold of 3% of GDP. This implies that the target set for fiscal deficit in the Charter for Fiscal Responsibility has been met, making the budget framework paper for financial year 2021-2022 and the medium term inconsistent with the CFR. This is completely against the Section 9, subsection 4 of the Public Finance Management Act 2015. Inconsistency with the CFR implies that additional debt has to be raised to finance the excesses created in the budget that warrants envisaged in the CFR. Section 7 of the Public Finance Act 2015 provides for incidences of deviations from the Charter. In this regard, government must prove economic shock that result from the COVID-19 led to an increase in the fiscal deficit of 7.7% of the GDP in financial year 2020-2021. Broad statements are made regarding tax measures. There are no details provided how much the tax measures are projected to yield and how they will contribute to increase revenue collections. Hence, there is no alignment of eventual tax measures with those proposed during the consideration of the budget framework paper. So we recommend, in line with Section 78 1 of the Public Finance Management Act, the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development should submit a report to Parliament why there is a deviation from the Charter of Fiscal Responsibility. 2, new revenue policies and tax measures should be articulated in the budget framework paper, detailing how much they would yield. This would articulate the logic of proposed domestic revenues and ensure consistency during the consideration of tax bills. Non-alignment to the NDP 3, and I am now not going completely, but we'll read the most important. We say there is a non-alignment, and this is seen in A, lower targets of GDP in the National Budget Framework Paper 2021-2022. That is by 4.3% compared to those in the plan, which is 5.9%. Deviation of program allocations as presented in the table in National Budget Framework Paper. Increment in the nominal public debt. Levels of domestic financing in the Budget Framework Paper are higher than those in the National Development Plan 3. And we can go to the recommendation 3 of non-alignment. We recommend that the National Budget Framework Paper be improved such that all programs are aligned to the National Development Plan 3 as directed by Section 9(3). Now, resource envelope and its credibility. Decreasing revenues. It has been noted with concern that there is a projected reduction in domestic revenue by 1,165 billion Uganda shilling, though there is an increment in budget support by Uganda shillings 755.4 billion. The decline in domestic revenue points to a struggling economy, which was seriously affected by COVID-19. So we recommend that government allocate bigger percentage of budget in productive sectors of the economy and also give support to the private sector so as to overcome the economic effects of COVID-19. We have table 2, which is about resource envelope. You can go through, and the summary of the project resource envelope. You can go through the table. Then, recapitalization of Bank of Uganda and consistence with the Public Finance Management Act 2015. In the process of scrutiny, of the National Budget Framework Paper, it was established that the Ministry of Finance had a figure of 481 billion purporting to be funds for the recapitalization of the central bank. However, the Deputy Governor, while appearing before the Budget Committee, disowned the funds before the committee. And this raises the issue of integrity, which has far-reaching effects on the resource envelope. Section 9, subsection 4 of the Public Finance Management Act, Schedule 3, Section 5, indicates that Parliament must approve the total resource envelope ceiling to be used in the preparation of the annual budget. The implication of having the recapitalization of Bank of Uganda from the resource envelope is that the interest costs on the budget will be overestimated, since the capitalization was supposed to be financed by issuance of domestic securities. We therefore recommend that, since the resource envelope is overestimated, then the budget should be adjusted to attain a balanced budget. The basis of inclusion of recapitalization funds to the central bank without any justification questions the integrity of the budget and how the intervention were determined. The fiscal authority needs to merit government interventions based on properly articulated plans guided by National Development Plan 3. Even in the near future, Bank of Uganda should exhaust all opinions before seeking for recapitalization from government. As proposed in the response of 2019, a public debt repayment schedule should be developed and published to guide debt management in Uganda. Terms and conditions of domestic borrowing should be laid before Parliament and become enforceable by resolution. The government must not commit loans that it's not intending to use in the near future. Otherwise, it sounds irregular for taxpayers to pay interest on loans that are idle. Underexploited potentials for local revenue. Based on the resource envelope, it is clear that from a total revenue of Uganda shillings 21.6 trillion, the bulk is projected to be collected at the center by Uganda Revenue Authority, 99%, and the rest collected from the local government, 1%. It is thus not surprising that local government rely on central government transfers due to the reliance of the transfers from form of grants estimated to fund over 85% of local government budgets. There is a marginal opportunity for fiscal autonomy and resource allocation discretion. This is a way defeats the decentralization policy, which intended to empower local governments to be self-sustaining in service delivery. The discretion powers of local government are increasingly being centralized to the extent that central government determines revenue instruments and expenditures through grants. Hence, the revenue collection potential is subdued. This has been worsened by the failure to undertake comprehensive revenue assessments and registration as precursor to boosting revenue collection. More still, the government policy to create more administrative centers through formation of new districts, municipalities, and town councils continues to undermine the revenue collection potential. So we recommend, as earlier recommended by Auditor General, there is need to allocate adequate funds to local governments to undertake revenue assessment and registrations. Number two, establish unit costs of delivering delegated services at local governments in order to facilitate proper planning and resource allocation. Three, reward entities that surpass the revenue for targets with the bonuses. Four, halt the creation of new administrative centers. So, unspent balances. We have a long list of these unspent of sectors with unspent balances. I can give one is Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, and this unspent balance went up to 123.95 in billion in 2019-2020, but in 2018-2019, it went also up to 828.871 billion. This is very unfortunate. So, as earlier noted during the consideration of annual budget for financial year 2019-2020, it is not clear how unspent balances of previous financial years are incorporated into financing a budget of the next financial year. This leads to underestimating the available resource envelope for a given financial year. Ideally, the unspent balance of previous financial year ought to be incorporated into the resource envelope of the following financial year. Surprisingly, the votes with the highest unspent balances are regular beneficiaries of supplementary budgets. This points to the fact that such votes did not require supplementary budgets. It also points to inadequate scrutiny of supplementary requests by the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. So we recommend a special audit of the consolidated fund should be undertaken with the purpose of ascertaining extent of unspent balances, how they arise ought to be budgeted for and utilized. So number 4, we go to microeconomic focus analysis. Decline in concessional financing. Government is increasingly raising non-concessional loans for projects that would not generate revenues for government within a period of not more than 5 years, as required under the Public Debt Management Framework 2013. In the financial year 2020-2021, it is projected that non-concessional loans amounting to Uganda shilling 6.16 trillion will constitute 89% of the total external financing of Uganda shillings 6.93 trillion. So as proposed in the response of 2019, non-concessional borrowing should be reserved for value addition projects with a high social or growth impact return, such as agro-processing industries and cold chain facilities, as well as development of strategic tourism sites. Employment creation. The rate of unemployment by 2020 has increased to 1.92% from 1.84% in 2019. Over the next 2 years, massive investment in infrastructure development related to the oil and gas sector and the related expected increase in foreign direct investment inflows have the potential to drive Uganda's economic growth. Sustained growth of the economy was expected to create jobs, drive poverty reduction, and make growth more inclusive. Although the economy is growing, it is not creating enough jobs. The Uganda economy is now on a path of rapid and sustained growth. However, the number of new jobs arising from this growth has been disappointingly low. It is established that of the 700,000 individuals who enter the labor market each year, only 100,000 find employment. This huge job absorption gap as economy grew by an average of this huge job absorption gap has retarded the poverty reduction in the country. For instance, although the economy grew by an average of 4.5% year-on-year between financial year 2015-2016 and financial year 2015-2017 to 2018, the number of people living in poverty increased in the same period from 19.7% in financial year 2015-2016 to 21.4% in financial year 2017-2018. This means that whereas the economy is perceived to be growing, its growth is not inclusive enough as it has not translated into job creation, poverty reduction, and significant wealth creation for Ugandans. As a consequence, many Ugandans are crowded out in sharing national cake by a few individuals. They are outside the market economy. So the recommendation is there is the need to boost more investment in productive sectors of agriculture and tourism so as to create more job opportunities as compared to complementary sectors, particularly works and transport, that have taken center stage in the recent years.
Madam Leader of the Opposition.
So I read now recommendation on.
Can I propose that you only deal with the recommendations because that's what we're extracting to send to the MDAs?
Right. So for number 5, we have the fiscal focus analysis. And it is the first one is on budget execution insufficiencies. And here we recommend that as proposed by the response of 2018, the following ought to be undertaken. Change of fiscal strategy from growing the external loan portfolio for at least 3 financial years and place priority on fully utilizing the already committed loans. Number 2, the nation's infrastructure development portfolio should be capped until ongoing projects are completed. This will ensure financial prudence to resolve, and 3, as resolved by Parliament in financial year 2017-2018, government should table cost structure of roads in Uganda. 5.2, inadequate disclosure of Treasury operations. And we recommended that all funds regarding interest payments, domestic refinancing, external debt repayments, and domestic arrears repayments should be reflected in budget allocations and medium-term projections of vote 130 Treasury operations. Then number 2, indicative proposed allocations of the constituency funds should also be reflected in the budget allocations and medium-term projections of vote 130 Treasury operations. So I think people can read what we reflected on. 5.3, low agricultural contribution to tax revenue. Here we also said, given that majority of landlords own an average of...
We agreed on recommendations.
Yes, Leader. I am on recommendation.
Okay.
Given that the majority of landlords own an average of 2.5 acres and most of the land is under customary ownership, 84%, block farming should be promoted as to boost productivity. Then 2, shift from provision of free agricultural inputs to subsidized inputs with emphasis on fertilizers so as to boost land fertility and subsequently production, which is a precursor for industrialization. 3, revive district farm institutes as epicenters for training small-scale farmers in modern farming skills and enterprise. 4, government should invest resources into the sugar industry and open up new sugar factories in especially the areas of Busoga in bid to solve the sugarcane crisis in that area. Number 6 is about certificate of gender and equity responsiveness. This is okay, but we still need to do better in areas where it has not been done well, and we should take that seriously and effectively, not just as what? Ritual, but seriously. Then number 7 is where we have a lot. Critical issues and alternative proposals on proposed priorities for financial year 2021-2022. Here you can read for yourself, but you will find that the financial year 2020-2021 allocated more than what we have in the financial year 2021-2022. Yet you will find that strategy about agricultural extension and skilling, and also tourism. We have the budget decreasing, and so we say this is extremely terrible given the following. Those followings you will read. Let me go to just the recommendation. We continue to ask government to allocate more funds towards cooperatives. You cannot emphasize cooperatives, then you just continue to now lower the budget for cooperatives. Cooperatives, extension services, tourism, marketing, and support for the elderly, so as to satisfy budget requirements and enhance their performances. Then 7.2, revamping minerals licensing and marketing systems. I will also read recommendation only, and the recommendation is a bit long. Here we said, as earlier proposed, the following ought to be undertaken: award and exploration and mining rights of license should be changed from first come, first serve to auctioning. This is also better than discretionary method. Auctioning will ensure that the highest bidder gets the rights of mining area. However, for this option to be feasible, it necessitates developing governments. However, for this to be feasible, it necessitates developing governments' geological data so that it accurately provides credible estimates of available mineral resources with a high degree of confidence. Presently, the most recently geological data is owned by private companies, and explicit regulations are required to demand for it to be deposited in government repository. It calls also for transparency and accountability systems. Nonetheless, as the case for first come first served, auctioning too without stringent measures is prone to influence by affluent at the neglect of small-scale miners. This therefore calls for categorization of mining rights, licenses, and permits that make reservations for small-scale miners. For instance, in Senegal, extraction permits are categorized in 4 different types, that is, exploration and mining permits, commercial use, small mine permit, maximum area of 500 hectares with no depth restriction, semi-mechanized permit, maximum area of 50 hectares with depth restriction of maximum 15 meters, artisanal permit and quarry permit. Zambia has 3 categories of permits and license, that is large scale, small scale, and artisanal. As a means for securing markets for minerals produced by artisanal miners, it is important to establish formal mineral marketing centers in major mining centers of Mubende, Bujiri, Buwejo, Namayingo, Ntungamo, and Amudat. This will be essential in curbing illicit minerals trading and under declaration of mineral values. They have been effective in Malawi. The center will be more effective as compared to existing mechanisms of exhibition and trade fairs. 3, provides resources to fast-track the realization of the Mining Act, which instrument will address some of the challenges in the mining sector. Underskilling and reskilling of unemployment graduates. We have recommended that, as highlighted in the last opposition response, a reiteration is made of the urgent need to establish a national skills inventory and national employment database, which should be complemented by a national capacity building strategy. This ought to be complemented by regular retooling of trainers and apprenticeship, so as to ensure graduates are employable and innovative for self-employment in a changing labor market. Then we say a survey of SMEs needs should be undertaken and fit for purpose rather than qualification programs developed. This would ensure growth and transformation of informal enterprises into formal enterprises. Number 5, on environment rehabilitation and restoration. We have made a recommendation that, as proposed by 2021, the National Tree Fund should be operationalized. Regulations developed and funds are allocated. This in line with Section 57 of the National Environment Act, will ensure restoration of the degraded hilly and mountainous areas. Government should release funds collected through environmental levy for environmental restoration activities. I think this is very labor externalization. I'm about to conclude. Labor externalization. Here, we recommend that as proposed in the 2020-2021 special cadre of labor attaches be created and adequately facilitated in all missions abroad as a means of enhancing monitoring of welfare of externalized laborers. Road maintenance. Here we also say set a ratio for works and transport sector development budget. That is 70% of every sector annual budget should be geared towards infrastructural development, while 30% is geared towards infrastructural maintenance. As resolved by Parliament in financial year 2017-2018, government should review cost structure of roads in Uganda with the intention of ascertaining unit cost of road construction and maintenance. We also say, as proposed in Clause 22 of the Constitution Amendment Bill 2019, there is urgency for to amend Article 166 of the Constitution so as to empower the Public Service Commission to determine all salaries and allowances in government. This would address distortion in pay among all public institutions. Number 8, in regard to Human Capital Development Program, we recommend that we propose an increase of the allocation to Human Capital Development Program to enhance the performance of competitiveness of private schools and institutions, and also make substantial improvements in the standards and quality of program. And 7.9 is agro-industrialization program. Here we recommend there should therefore be an increase in the budget allocation to 10% to bring the allocation up to speed up with the Maputo Protocol. This will enhance empowerment of farmer groups through cooperatives, promote food security, and increase the contribution of agriculture sector to GDP. Now, in conclusion, Right Honorable Speaker, the proposed alternative proposals articulated in this response, when adopted, will contribute to effective and efficient execution of the budget for the financial year 2021-2022. The proposals have been made in line with Section 6E(2) and subsection 4 of the Administration of Parliament Amendment Act 2006, as well as Rule 52 of the Rules of Procedure. Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to submit, and I also beg to lay our response on table. I beg to.
Thank you very much, Madam Leader of the Opposition. Honorable members, the guidance I would give on this matter is that for this to be successfully captured in the budget process, the clerk should extract these recommendations and forward them to all the ministries, departments, and agencies of government that submit policy statements to this House. because those policy statements are supposed to be in this House by 15th of this month, and today is already 4th. So time is of essence. Clerk, extract these recommendations and forward them straight to the MDAs so that they can look at them in the process of preparing their ministerial or rather policy statements to be submitted to the House by 15th of this month. Honourable members, I also take this opportunity to deal with the outline of the budget process so that we know where we are. We have a challenge that this Parliament will terminate at least, will not exceed the 20th of May, because by 20th of May, a new Parliament will have started sitting. What that means is we don't want to hand over this budget process to the next Parliament, because it will be too difficult for the next Parliament to begin processing this. That means we have 15 days left in the budget cycle. And essentially, there should be some alteration in the way that we will be processing this budget. The ministers, the government chief whip, please ensure that by 15th, all ministerial policy statements are in the House, to enable the alternative policy statements to be brought into the House by 29th, as it is in the rules of March, and then the committees will expeditiously work on these things to be able to achieve what we must achieve by the date when this Parliament will not be operational. We would therefore expect the ministry also to prepare all the budgetary documents to be submitted to the House by 1st of April, in time. But the challenge then would be other processes leading after the 1st of April on the submission on time of the budget, proposed budget, the appropriation bill, and all the other accompanying documents. They should be there by that day. Then processes that will come after should be really, really quick, so that the timelines provided in the rules, we make all practical alterations to them for us to be able to finish with all the revenue bills, with all the reports from the committees and the budget committee, and adopt everything that requires to be adopted, including also the appropriation bill. All this we must do by 15th or latest, by 15th of May. That means we have a whole 2 weeks less window left for us to finish this business. So the appropriation bill, which is the final document we'll deal with on the budget, must be dealt with by 15th of May. And that imposes really a very tough timeline. And this time, Government Chief Whip, please ensure that from the government side, all the documents required by this House are submitted in time, so that we can see how the committee can work faster to achieve this. Otherwise, we will have a big problem when we exceed the 15th of May. The President will take oath on the 12th. The members of Parliament will take oath from the 17th, 18th, and 19th. And the first sitting of the 11th Parliament will be on the 20th. We want all these things finished by the time those activities come into place. So thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. Given the program as you have read it out, are we going to use the only 3 days in a week, or should we begin planning using the Fridays so that members of Parliament can adjust their programs? Because for sure, the program is tight. Even if we presented the ministerial policy statements by 15th, we have actually drawn the program towards us because of the swearing in. Can we begin preparing ourselves to utilize the Fridays and the mornings of these Parliament days, because members of Parliament have to adjust their programs, sir?
I think the bigger burden will lie with the committees. The committees will have to work even on weekends to be able to achieve these timelines. For the plenary, we'll adjust according to the volume of work presented before plenary. As of now, we can't determine whether it would be necessary to sit on Mondays and Fridays when we don't have the load of business that the House has to process. And a member of the business committee will eventually sit to review this and see. But practically, it will depend on how you respond to this. Policy statements in time, alternative policy statements in time, and the committees work doubly hard because what they process is what will inform the House of what adjustments we should make in terms of how many days we can sit in a week to be able to complete this. So I think that is a practical decision that will take with time when it becomes necessary. Thank you very much. Next item. Clarification from Bale Municipality.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, may I also join the rest of the members by welcoming you back to the House. Mr. Speaker, Uganda is a multi-party democracy. Year in and year out, the leader of opposition makes a statement on the policy statement, on the budget, reply to the president's speech. But I keep wondering whether all these issues raised by the leader of opposition are ever included in the government statements or taken as a serious proposal by the opposition that they include them because they are for the whole country. So I wanted to find out from the leader of government business whether the leader of opposition stands up here, speaks, brings up issues, whether they are ever taken seriously and are included in the development of this country. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Is Government Chief Whip? Is that honorable? Yes.
Right Honorable Speaker, I want to thank Honorable Wamai for the point he has raised. I listened to the leader of government, the leader of opposition, submitting, and I took interest in some of the proposals. I called my Minister of Finance, David Bahat, because I was concerned at what stage shall government include the proposals from the opposition because they are there to enrich our submission. And Honorable Bahat assured me that we shall have a debate in April and that the Minister of Finance is mandated to make adjustments and make proposals to accommodate what the recommendations have been proposed at that stage. Yes, I want to assure you, Honorable, that we have been accommodating some of the recommendations that government feels that we can work on them. And we always submit a Treasury memorandum of how far we have gone in implementing these recommendations. Where we have not done, the opposition is there to whip us to make sure that we do include the recommendations because they are in good faith and they enrich the government.
But you see, like I said, they should extract these recommendations and quickly send them to the MDAs who prepares policy statements and send to this House so that they are factored in. We will be able to track its presence or lack thereof when the policy statement come out. The leader of the opposition and the team that she has will be able to see whether the policy statements actually reflect some of the issues that they have raised and the recommendations they have made. So that process will be. By the time we come to the debate that the minister has talked about, it will already be in the final budgeting process where recommendations, figures attached to those recommendations will be revealing to see the emphasis that has been picked from the proposals that come from the alternative or the government in waiting. So it's a process that I think so far we are doing well. If there are issues, we would be able to point them out and see how we can improve on them. So far, so good, except that this has come a bit late because now we are in March. Ordinarily, the alternative from the lead of the opposition should have come about 15th of January, so that by 20th it would have been factored in. But we're handling that in a practical way. Yes, are we still proceeding with this matter? Yes, member for Dokolo, then Kabula, and then I have briefly, please.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I join others to welcome you back to the House. Right Honorable Speaker, what the Government Chief Whip has said requires the decision of the Business Committee. However, I would like to bring an issue which has been outstanding for a long time. We have very good recommendations from the PAC committees, committees of public accounts, or accountability committees. And most of the time when these reports are given, they are given after so many years that the recommendations given are no longer relevant, or they have been overtaken by events. So, Right Honorable Speaker, I would like to urge the Business Committee and those who are concerned, if they could extract some of those recommendations and we deal with them so that we can capture them in the ministerial policy statement debates when they come. So, Right Honorable Speaker, I thought this is a very important matter. It has been burdening some of us, and we have also got some commissions like the Human Rights Commissions. We are now having so much concern about human rights abuses, and they make very, very good recommendations, but they are never brought to us for debate. So I think this is a time that we need to review our way of bringing business to the floor of Parliament so that we don't leave too much gaps, Right Honorable Speaker. I thank you.
I agree entirely. We need to use parliamentary time better.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Also, I want to add my voice to congratulate you coming back in the chair and winning in an election. Since some of us we are in the departure lounge, but my point I would like to make, my experience has been here long, that sometimes policy statements to be brought back always in the House so that the committees can have them, discuss them. Always we get a hiccup from them, from the side of the executive. We need an assurance because, as we said, by 15th to this month, we could have got them. Two, they are not there. Tax measures, I belong to the Finance Committee. We could have dealt with them, some of them to meet the agencies. You see the timeline we have. So we need an assurance from government that all the responsible sectors should bring that in according to what you've stated.
Okay. Just to remind you that the 15th of March is still ahead. It hasn't passed. That's the deadline. Yes, can I have a commitment from the government on this? Because this time really you need to help yourselves so that we can help you. Yes, yes, Chair of Finance. And then
thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Let me first join the rest of the colleagues to congratulate you and to welcome you back to the House. Mr. Speaker, I would like to comment on the alternative statement on the budget framework paper and how subsequently it should cascade into the budget process. Mr. Speaker, one point to note This alternative statement should have come at the point when we were debating the budget framework paper. Why? Because the Public Finance Management Act of 2015 provides that the policy statements must be consistent with the budget framework paper. Mr. Speaker, the House considered the budget framework paper and made appropriate recommendations to the executive, which by law, the executive is supposed to look into and factor them into the proposals in the policy statements. Mr. Speaker, I'm wondering, at this point, that is when also the alternative proposals should come into the executive. We consolidate into single recommendations to come back to the House, already factored in the policy statements. This did not happen. However, Mr. Speaker, I would like to allay the fears of our colleagues from the other side that most of the recommendations the Right Honorable Leader of Opposition has been raising are almost similar to what the budget framework paper recommended to the executive. Therefore, unless the executive did not consider our recommendations, I believe most of the issues the Leader of Opposition has raised are already captured in the ministerial policy statements, which we expect on 15th. My last comment is on the Treasury memoranda and reports by the Auditor General. Mr. Speaker, one of the tools we should be using in the budget scrutiny are reports by the Auditor General and also the Treasury memoranda itself. And Mr. Speaker, the rules relating to budget process do not deter us from using the reports of the Auditor General, even when the accountability committees have not pronounced themselves on these reports. Therefore, I would like to encourage our colleagues in the various committees to pick interest in the recommendations made by the Auditor General and pick them at the stage when they are relevant. These are the issues we should be raising to the MDAs when we are considering their budgets. Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Yes, Chiboga.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I also join the House in congratulating you, your successes so far. Now, I just wanted to quickly add and to allay fears of our colleagues regarding these alternative statements. And I don't know whether it's just our Natural Resources Committee, but we've always found it very, very informative. And over and above whatever else may have been presented, we have always allowed slot in scrutinizing the ministerial policy statement for the shadow ministers to present these reports to the committee. And normally their input somehow influences the thinking of the committee on the policy statement of the ministries, even where whatever they may have presented has not been captured. And normally actually that finds its way eventually on the floor of Parliament in terms of the recommendations of the committee. So I think it's very helpful, very informative, and one of the tools over and above the Auditor General's report, which is helping us in scrutinizing the ministerial policy statement and also the budget framework. Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker.
Thank you. I have the Honourable... No, I can't see properly. Oh, yes. Please, please, please.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. I also congratulate you on your success and welcome you back. I seem to have a small problem with the previous speaker from the other side when he said that most of the recommendations this side were similar, and it seems to suggest that we may take it at that. But I think if you say most of them, then the few could have an adverse effect on the economy. And as you all know, we don't die from many diseases. You can also just die from one. So I would suggest that we do not think that, we take it seriously and take the recommendations and actually analyze each one such that even those ones that are just similar, we take the similarities, and then the other things that are not similar, we also take them seriously. Thank you so much, Right Honourable Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Members. We need to draw this to a close. I'll have Honourable Mawanda, Honourable Katuntu, then I come to the Minister. Oh, Kajara has already picked you as well. Okay.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker.
Briefly, Honourable Members.
Right Honourable Speaker, to add on what Honourable Cecilia Guerra has said, at times the government does respond to reports in the form of Treasury memorandum, but also as Parliament we take time to accord these Treasury memorandum an opportunity to be discussed. The case in point, the Kosase report about the closure of commercial banks. Government did respond. We have a Treasury memorandum from government that was submitted to Parliament in August. We have been asking for opportunity by Parliament to give us a chance to debate that report so that it's not overtaken by events. Up to now, you can imagine from August up to date, that report has not been brought on the floor of Parliament for us to debate. It is my request, Right Honourable Speaker, that we specifically give an opportunity to that Treasury memorandum. It is very, very important because there are some recommendations that were supposed to have taken effect immediately, which up to now, nothing has been done. So it's my request that I know we have a serious schedule, but kindly accord some time to that report, that Treasury memorandum, so that we can be debated and we take it to another stage. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Katuntu.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. Karibu back to the House and congratulations. I stood up earlier on really to raise the same issue which eventually the Honourable Jacoamai raised. The budget process is the most important activity undertaken by this House every year because it touches the sharing of national resources. Given the timelines, the tight ones as you have earlier on read out, many of these things are ritual without taking into consideration the seriousness of the process. That's why, Right Honourable Speaker, you'll find that when the policy statements eventually come, it is sometimes copy and paste of, and it has been happening time and time again. I think, Right Honourable Speaker, through you I want to speak to government. Let us have a paradigm shift, really to take this process very seriously. But these alternative views coming in from the opposition, some of them actually policy differences. You may be in a position to say, well, you propose this, but we don't agree with you. That is okay, because you have a manifesto for which we assume that's what the country chose. So But we need some accountability on the part of government, to what extent they have taken the alternative views from the opposition seriously. Because this is the only choice we have. This is the only forum we have for you to pick these alternative views and they enrich the process. So, right, Honourable Speaker, I think we are also being over-optimistic that this time left, as you have, we are going to take this process very seriously. It will involve actually burning midnight candles if we are to take this process seriously. Otherwise, if people just walk in, tomorrow they will run the documents around, we don't even have time to scrutinize them, and it will be business as usual. Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker.
Thank you. Kajara?
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I join the rest to welcome you back to the House. I can't say from where, because I don't need to answer that question. Mr. Speaker, I do welcome you to the House. And I want to say that the response from the Leader of Opposition should have been debated together with the report concerning the budget framework paper. And when they say the recommendations are not always captured, indeed, they might not be captured, because we have not debated this response in depth. That would augment that response from the opposite side, and then would attract evaluation from the government side. And that would cause the clear digestion of that statement and the other report for the ministries and agencies to act. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, when it happens like this and people complain that their recommendations are not captured, it means we have to change the culture, and we have to make sure those two, the report and the response, come together, and we debate both of them. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I would ask your guidance on this matter. Now that the response has just come when it is late, are we allowed to debate such that we augment it from the other side and scrutinize it from the government side, such that it gains strength, and whenever it reaches any office, it goes with that strength, and then it is captured as the opposition expects? Otherwise, if we do not do that, we are talking today, but even next year we shall find that nothing has been captured, and it will be the weakness of Parliament, because it's our job to make sure that everything which comes to this House is really put into practice. Mr. Speaker, I seek your guidance on that, and if it is allowed to debate this response, then, Mr. Speaker, you give us a chance to scrutinize the response from the government side, and then the opposition side gets a chance to augment their response. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, I explained this at the beginning, why we are doing it at this time. The time, of course, is not right, but we are accommodating it because there are processes that are still ahead that could take care of this situation. Ordinarily, as you rightly stated, this response should have come before the 20th of January. Because by the 20th of January, the committees, the sectoral committees are ready to report to the budget committee. And that's where the challenge is. The timeline there is a bit tight. Budget framework paper, 31st December. And usually for ministerial policy statements, we give 14 days for the alternative policies to be submitted. But in the case of the budget framework paper, we don't have 15 days, because if you give 15 days from the 31st, that comes to about 15th, or 14th of January. And already the committees are under obligation to report to the budget committee by 20th. So you have only 4 days. That's a challenge that we have. But given that the budget framework papers are normally brought to Parliament actually before, my experience has been that we have always received them before the 31st of December. sometimes the 20th of December. The last time I checked in the other financial year, they brought it on the 20th of December, which would have given us more time. I think we're going to have to be practical in the way we handle this so that we can all be participatory in this budget process. If we are to wait for the timelines that are within the law, sometimes we hit the tail of what is going on. And that is why we don't have to wait for the 15th of this month to bring the ministerial policy statement. It's a deadline. As of now, I would have loved if the Honorable Minister of Finance was going to tell me that, Right Honorable Speaker, by Tuesday these things are going to start pouring in, or by this afternoon they're going to start coming in. That would really please my soul. That would be the way to go. Yes, Honorable Minister. And we conclude this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I also join my colleagues in congratulating you upon your re-election as a Member of Parliament and for the good performance for the NRM party in the northern region of this country. The second point is I want to thank the Leader of Opposition for the alternative statement she has made regarding the budget framework paper. Mr. Speaker, we were supposed to receive this statement, the dates that you have mentioned, and we agreed with the Leader of Opposition that there was no problem to present this after the process, after we have considered the budget framework paper, and she graciously accepted, and I'm glad that she has lived up to our expectations. I also want to promise her that we shall also live to what we promised you in ensuring that what you have put in the budget framework paper alternative is incorporated in the policy statements to the extent possible. Those that we can accommodate and those that will wait for the government in waiting will have to wait for the government waiting. But those that can be accommodated now will have to be accommodated. The third point is on what Honorable Cecilia Ogwar raised, and I think it was also mentioned by Honorable Musasizi. But Mr. Speaker, when we were considering the budget framework paper, which lays the priorities for the budget per sector, many of the committees actually interrogated the performance of the sectors. They interrogated the priorities for the sectors. So as the policy statement, ministerial policy statement come, it will actually be easy for the committees who did that work. For example, I normally face the chairperson of Finance Committee. Most of the work for the budget, he has already finished because he has interrogated the priorities, and so therefore it will be confirmed now whether these priorities are actually in the ministerial policy statement. So I think if we worked like that, and if the members on the left hand of the House also continue to monitor what's in the policy statement, then all the views that we're talking about will be incorporated. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, the issue of the audited accounts by the accountability committees. Government, we have done our part, because the law requires that when you submit these reports to the House, the executive should make the Treasury memoranda and bring them back to the House for consideration, stating what recommendations you have been able to implement, those that you have not implemented, the reasons why you cannot implement them. All these memoranda are actually in this House. So, Mr. Speaker, I request that at an appropriate time, we dedicate time to discuss these Treasury memoranda, because the executive has done its part. What remains now is a part of the House, and we are here to attend to any queries or questions that will come out of those memoranda. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The policy statements? The policy statements? No, the policy statements.
I want to state that, Mr. Speaker, we are committing that we shall do better than we did last financial year. Thank you. And we are going to start receiving them next week. Next week, we don't have to wait for 15. And from here, those ministerial policy statements that are ready, we are going to start forwarding them. I hope even ours of the Parliamentary Commission will be the first to come in next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable members, you know we changed the way of bringing them to Parliament. We requested them to be laid so that a date is known and the transmissions are done to the committees from the chair of this House. So we expect these policy statements to start coming in time to help us proceed properly. Next item.
Item number 5 on the order paper, statements by ministers. 1 on the steps taken to address causes of landslides in Buvuma district.
Honorable members, I have looked at them again. These are questions which were urgent questions. So we cannot treat them as ministerial statements. We treat them as questions raised under urgent matters, Rule 42, where the person who will be responding to this will answer it in the format of responding to an urgent question, not a full statement that you are going to talk about everything under the sun in that sector. So you restrict yourself to the question and the response to it as an urgent matter. Honorable Minister, please proceed.
Thank you. Right Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I congratulate you on that chair. It's nice to see you there. And I pray that may the will of the Lord be done in your life. Right Honorable Speaker, I'm here to respond to queries raised by honorable members. I have a number of them. Don't know whether you will allow me to present them all and then the response comes at a go, or one by one. It is welcome.
No, right now is Buvuma Island, causes of landslides. Briefly. Then the
Thank
next,
you.
and the next.
Thank you. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable colleagues in the House. The response is also already uploaded, and I'll go as such to respond. The honorable member for Buvuma raised this issue, and we are responding. One, giving the background that, as we are aware, Uganda and the Lake Victoria Basin in particular has experienced intense and prolonged rain with no clear dry spell since April 2019. In less than 8 months, Lake Victoria water level rose by 1.57 meters from 11.91 meters in October 2019 to 13.48 meters on 19th May 2020, recording the highest ever recorded lake water level in 124 years. Indeed, Buvuma district, being an island in Lake Victoria, has been greatly affected by the rise in the water level. Furthermore, water bodies, rivers and lake and wetlands, swamps in Buvuma district constitute 40% of the total area of the district. While the northern part of the district is flat, the southern side consists of sloping lands with many undulations where 75% of the land is less than 600 degrees in slope. The highland has 12% of land with 120 slopes. This in particular, Nairambi sub-county affected by the landslide is the most populated sub-county. That is 21.4% as per the UBOS 2014 records. And it has conflicting activities to the good environmental practices as a result. Right Honorable Speaker, there are several factors that triggered the landslides in the district, specifically
for the case in point in Buvuma district. This particular district receives one of the highest and intense rainfall in Uganda and many times experience continuous rains for days. The mean annual rainfall in Buvuma Island is 11,000 millimeters, with peak seasons in March to May and September to November. However, due to the unusual continuous rains within Lake Victoria Basin from last year through the months of March, April, and May 2020, topsoils on the high slopes are saturated with water, making the heavy soil loose and resulting into landslides. Mr. Speaker, then the environmental degradation has a toll on this due to an increasing district population size. Tremendous pressure has been exerted on the natural resources through uncontrolled timber logging, wetland encroachment, charcoal burning, pollution, farming activities, and the settlements. In particular, Bukiyindi wetlands in Nairambi sub-county has been converted for agriculture. Right Honourable Speaker, several interventions have been made by my ministry. When this landslide incidents happen, the technical officials from the district, led by the district environmental officer, on the 24th July 2020, visited the scene and the affected people of Kihindi community in Nairambi sub-county. The community admitted that large visible cracks had developed on that elevated slope mountain for quite some time, and these were early warning signs of an impending landslide. They were informed that the first earlier landslide occurred on the 22nd May 2020 as it was raining. Although the unfortunate event resulted in the loss of property, including houses, gardens with crops, the fortunate part was that no life was lost. About 72 people have been affected, 60 hectares of land lost. Frequent landslides has since continued to happen with continued rains. Residents in the affected villages have been strongly advised to vacate the slope to safety, since the entire slope was at the verge of collapsing. The district local government and central government is aware of this recommendation. Vacation of the dangerous slopes prone to landslides, submergency, and flood is immediate to save lives and property. As the ministry responsible for disaster preparedness and relief finds ways of providing relief and settlement and resettlement. The next long rains onset is on, and landslides might continue occurring as such. So, Speaker, as part of the technical backup, a field visit was made during the month of September 2020 by the Macroeconomic National Technical Team to all floods affected districts in Uganda, including Buvuma district. This was intended to assess on the ground impacts of rising water levels, landslides, and the floods in Uganda as a whole. While in Buvuma, Right Honourable Speaker, the Buvuma district headquarters, the team was briefed on the challenges facing the district, including landslides that has caused loss of property and displacement of persons. However, the team could not assess the affected landslide sites because the roads were quite impassable. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to inform the House that Cabinet, during its meeting on the 20th April 2020, had recognized that Uganda was faced with national challenges of rising water levels and floods due to unpredictable, intense and prolonged rains in the region. Cabinet formed a cabinet subcommittee to address the issue of rising water levels and associated floods and their impact on people, services, and infrastructure. The subcommittee, chaired by the Right Honorable Prime Minister, comprises the Minister of Water and Environment, the Energy and Mineral Development, Agriculture, Animal Industry, and Fisheries, Works and Transport, Local Government, Lands, Housing and Urban Development, Health, Education and Sports, Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Defense, Internal Affairs, Information Communication Technology and National Guidance, Health, Education and Disaster Preparedness and Relief. The subcommittee established the multi-sector national technical task team spearheaded by my ministry. The team were tasked to prepare a national action plan and provide technical advice on how to deal with issues of rising water levels and associated floods, landslides, and their impact on people, services, and infrastructure in the immediate, short, medium, and long term. Right Honorable Speaker, the National Technical Task Team has since prepared a response action plan considering the following priorities, among others: to step up monitoring and surveillance early warning system, provide relief and resettlement packages, tighten enforcement, increase awareness campaigns aimed at sensitizing communities on risk reduction and resilience initiatives, support restoration of degraded water catchments, demarcation of high-risk zones where settlements should not be allowed in some slopes unless the ridge has thick forest cover. The immediate national action plan was endorsed by the subcommittee of Cabinet for funding. Right Honorable Speaker, Parliament of Uganda in June 2020 approved the supplementary budget amounting to 45 billion to address immediate interventions caused by the rising water level and floods. However, these funds have since not been released by the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. This has hampered response to provide the required services as raised by Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, sir, we are doing everything possible to ensure that these areas are responded to if funds allow. I beg to submit.
Thank you very much. Honourable Member who raised the matter, do you have any supplementary question? Has it been answered properly?
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, when you read the order paper, it is the Minister was supposed to give interventions. And this incident happened in May. I raised the issue in June. The team visited the district, and according to what I get from the minister, they were unable to reach the affected area. And the reason is the area is inaccessible. As far as I know, the area is accessible. And one of the prayers I had that day, in June 22nd, was the Ministry of Environment help in relocating these affected people. Half of Buvuma is land belonging to National Forest Authority, and it is forest land. Yes, that's half. The other quarter is for palm oil production. So you have just a quarter left. So I expected the minister in her response to indicate to Parliament that they have reserved an area, maybe part of the NFA or nearby, where they have actually relocated these people. Because that's one of the first prayers we have, even before Furu comes. 2 weeks ago, we had a second landslide in the same area. So the situation is worsening, and maybe the other time we never lost a life, we may actually lose life. So my appeal is that the minister and maybe the Minister of Technical team should actually visit the area, because the area is accessible. And also calling upon the disaster ministry, because the second prayer was that relief assistance should be provided. Up to today, not even a single blanket, not even a single kilogram of posho has gone to this area. And it is almost coming to a year. So there is some unseriousness that the minister is exhibiting here, and let me hope it is not the unseriousness of government. So we need action, not these task forces and so on. We need action on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you. You see, the thing about these things is that sometimes you're not even required to come back with a statement to Parliament. What you come to say, this is what we have done. You see, because these explanations, when the problem still remains, it actually does not respond to the question, because they raises an urgent matter that requires you to go there, solve it, and come back to Parliament and say, we have done this so far, we have the following challenges outstanding. Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, and honourable colleague. It is indeed sad that we are not able to reach there. But I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that one, the prayer is saying that I should have come and said part of the forest can be used for resettlement. Mr. Speaker and the House, there are procedures of changing this natural resource into use. But as government, we have heard so many of those voices that when people are really suffering, what should we do? And I want to say that there's some engagement to that effect, which is in cabinet. Once it is concluded, probably we can respond. But normally, there's a procedure of turning a natural resource into a settlement. However, I want to confirm that government is concerned and is looking into where to try to settle our people when these disasters occur. Secondly, Right Honourable Speaker, the prayer of the colleague that they needed some help. I do agree.
Point of order.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, and with all respect, Right Honourable Speaker, we are talking about an emergency. And what the Honourable Minister is saying that, there is a procedure that is supposed to be followed. When an emergency occurs, all the other procedures, most of the procedures are supposed to be put on the side. They wait. And the issue, what is supposed to go on is how you save lives. So is the Honourable Minister in order to substitute saving of lives with the procedures? The Honourable Minister in order. Should the people continue dying because there is a procedure? The Minister in order.
Honourable members, the issue is this: there was an emergency. It happened about 1 year ago. But there's a recent one which is being brought right now, that there was a recent landslide in Buvuma Islands. I think this is the problem we have with when urgent matters are overstretched in terms of response. We start considering things even which were not part of what was raised. From their intervention, they knew that this certain thing should happen, but the emergency phase by that time had gone out and attended to. So on that one, I'm saying, Honourable Minister, what you should have dealt with today, there was an emergency. What did you do? There's now a new emergency. What have you done? I think that's where the question is. And then there are other long-term solutions, because there will be long-term, there will be medium-term, and what is the short-term thing you have done to protect these people from just starving to death? I think that's the essence of this question. So you have not proceeded very well on this matter. Please, proceed better now.
Noted, Right Honorable Speaker. Honorable colleague, my response was not like I'm downplaying the suffering of the people. As a government, as I have already alluded, my chief whip is here. We are putting in place some of these suggestions so that we can do much better as we are preparing for the coming rains. For the request of my ministry visiting the place, since it is now accessible, I really have no problem, my honorable member of parliament, to come and assess the situation myself as we prepare for the oncoming rains. I hope the last question of some intervention since it happened. We know that we can liaison with the Minister of Disaster and Relief. My chief whip is here to take that so that something is delivered to our people. We do care as a government. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item.
5.2, statement on the delayed completion of Kahenje water supply and sanitation system in Rukungiri district.
Direct response, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Muzanira, the woman MP Rukungiri, raised this issue and was brought to the House. Right Honorable Speaker, I remember this issue was raised and we responded to this issue. It's just only being repetitive. I don't know why it came up and I was here. I'm here to confirm that personally I responded to the issue of Honorable Muzanira, and maybe I can give the current position as it is, because I have ever personally responded on the floor of Parliament. Then that will take us that, one, all the fittings about the delayed water works, all the fittings were now delivered, installed. We have already installed them, and the contractor is testing this installation, and within by 15th March, Right Honorable Speaker, we shall have the plant running.
Thank you.
Two, by 15 also, and after a month after 15th, this project would be available for the community of Rukungiri to enjoy, Right Honorable Speaker. That is by 15 April, the people of Rukungiri shall be able to enjoy these facilities, the services as it comes. That is what I have to respond to, Mr. Chairman. Speaker.
Thank you. I'm just being informed that there was a similar project in Rukungiri and one in Ntungamo. Is that correct, Honorable Minister? The one in Ntungamo, what has happened to it? So that we don't come back to this again. The similar project, one for Ntungamo.
Mr. Speaker, my response as an order paper has been drawn to the attention of what I've presented, and if the member is raising another substantial query, I'm happy to come back and respond even tomorrow or next
Gajara, please, when you at your own time, please talk to the minister so that she knows what we are talking about here. Honorable Minister, please, next item.
Item number 5.
Oh, you are the one who raised the matter. The member is here. Yes. Member for Rukungiri district.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. And on behalf of Rukungiri and on my behalf, congratulations and welcome back. Right Honorable Speaker, Last year, February, this Honorable Minister made a statement on the water project of Rukunjiri, that is Kahenje Water and Sanitation Project. And he gave the assurance that on 1st May of 2020, the people of Rukunjiri will be enjoying the safe water. This is why I repeated the question. But up to now, our people are still dying because of water-related diseases. Recently, I don't know whether she's aware, this project was handed over to be completed by the National Water Sewage Corporation. And today, my prayer is that the government give us confirmation and assurance as Rukunjiri people on the date when these people will enjoy the safe water, other than spending money on the project, which is endless always. And they give us statements here on the floor of Parliament, yet the people keep dying because of unsafe water. The assurance she has given today by 15th, I'm not sure. I don't know whether they have finished the memorandum of understanding with the National Water and Sewage Corporation, which is taking up the project to complete it. And we would like to have a statement why the first contractor left, the one who was supposed to complete it by May 2020. Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker.
I think the issue which we are going to take up with the minister is take our word that 15th of this month, this matter will be solved and water will be running. If you don't show up with it.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. My honourable friend, the colleague Betty, we have been talking about this thing even behind the Parliament, and I just want to reaffirm that what I've given you here, as you have directed, Right Honourable Speaker, we shall have the people of Rukunjiri enjoying the service. If not, I will have maybe another reason to come back and explain for why there's change of the project. Mr. Speaker, we had challenges with COVID. Last year, you know, the project couldn't be on schedule and the contractors could not do their work. And besides, National Water is an agency in my ministry. It is a government agency. So I'm talking authoritatively that is the same government which has assured the people of Rukunjiri, come 15th April, you will enjoy the service.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next item.
Statement.
Did you say 15th March or 15th April? 15th April. 15th April. Next item.
A statement by the Minister on the action report on Chiwura Central Forest Reserve.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. The issue which was raised on Chiwura Central Forest Reserve, I wish to respond as such. I refer to the directive by the Right Honourable Speaker to present an action taken by the Minister, my ministry, to evict encroachers in Chiwura Central Forest Reserve. Right Honourable Speaker, Chiwura Central Forest Reserve covers an area of 2,147 hectares and is situated at Mbale County, Kayunga District. This is one of the forests which government has earmarked for reforestation by private sector. Mr. Speaker, as I had earlier reported that in 2019, NFA picked information that some certificates of titles had been created on the Central Forest Reserve with the intention of alienating part of the whole of the Central Forest Reserve. NFA had responded by deploying environmental police to stop the activities of the encroachers and filed a suit in the High Court of Mukono against the Semuga, Badru, and 2 other defendants challenging their occupation and claim on Chiwula Central Forest Reserve. Right Honorable Speaker, the Semuga Badru transferred his title to Modern Agriculture Intra Limited on the 3rd July 2019. Modern Agri Infra Limited, in addition to the title acquired from Semuga Badru in Kiula Central Forest Reserve, also holding the following titles in the same Central Forest Reserve. 1, he had a freehold register volume MK 0790, folio 22 block on Bugerere Road, 153 plot 153 block 50, plot 31 at Kirasa Bale Kayunga district, measuring to 587,470 hectares. 2, Right Honorable Speaker, the freehold register volume MK 01316, folio 1 block road on Bugere Road, plot 153, block 153, plot 32 at Kerasa, Galilaya, Mbale, Kayunga district, measuring 215,101 hectares. The same Badru. 3, Right Honorable Speaker, freehold register volume 1324, folio 12, Bugerere Road, block 153, plot 2 at Nakabale, Kasosokwe, Kayunga district, measuring 551,265 hectares. 4, that is D, he also holds a freehold register, volume 1258, folio 4, Bugerere Road, block 153, plot 1 at Nakabale, Kasonkwe, Kayunga district, measuring 452,420 hectares. Modern Agri Infra Limited sued NFA in a separate case in a civil suit number 18 of 2020, and Mukono restraining NFA from interfering with the use, possession, and enjoyment of the land, the titles totaling to an area of 1,806,318 hectares. Mr. Speaker, as earlier reported, Semuga Badru had also obtained a court injunction against NFA in a suit number 102 of 2019 on plot 9, block 14 in Chiwula Central Forest Reserve, measuring 406,492 hectares. Mr. Speaker, my ministry and NFA are restrained from evicting the encroachers by the 2 court injunctions covering the entire Kiwura Central Forest Reserve. We are therefore constrained from proceeding with eviction. Mr. Speaker, personally, I took my team and we went to this area for inspection. That these are the constraints we still have on this issue. I beg to submit.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, you will realize that the minister's first statement was that the Shula Central Forest Reserve covers an area of 2,147 hectares. But now you can see that she has even gone to 1 million hectares in part of her statement. I think the reading was, and so let the record show that the reference to 215,000, it's actually 215.1 hectares, and 551.256 hectares, and 452.482 hectares. So it is 1,806.3 hectares, not 1 million. I think that's the correction we need to make on the record, so that we don't end up with a land that is the size of the whole country, and yet we are talking about the forest in Mbale County or Mbale. So let's make that correction so that the records can be corrected accordingly. Thank you. Next item. Honourable members, we are going to be taking a break for lunch, and we'll be resuming at 2 o'clock, but let's receive one more statement. Yes, Honourable, can I finish with one statement, then I take the urgent matter from Honourable Semuju.
Statement by the Minister on the impending eviction of encroachers from Mount K Central Forest Reserve.
That will be the last statement we are receiving. Then we have an urgent matter from Honourable Semuju. Then we can break and come back.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. The encroachers, the pending eviction on the encroachers from Mount K Central Forest Reserve, as it was raised by Honourable Driwaruzu Zaitun, Woman MP of Parliament for Moyo District. Right Honourable Speaker, the Honourable Member, Yumbe? My apologies once more, Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker. Raised the issue of the pending eviction of the communities of 3 sub-counties in Yumbe District, and the need to stay the eviction exercise for 3 months pending reallocation of the affected community and consultation of the local leaders. Right Honourable Speaker, the Central Forest Reserve affected is Mount K, situated in both Yumbe and Koboko district, covering 40,689 hectares. The reserve was established under the legal notice number 100 of 1938 as a core conservation forest, and is separated from South Sudan by River Kaya. The reserve is surrounded by 4 sub-counties, namely Ludara in Koboko district, Nindingo, Kei, and Nkerwa sub-counties in Yumbe district. Mr. Speaker, sir, according to the BIMAS study conducted in the reserve in 1996, this forest was largely intact. However, by 2017, over 40% of the forest was encroached on, and the encroachment continued as more people from South Sudan, DR Congo, and the immigrants from the surrounding districts of Maracha, Koboko, Arua, and Yumbe, and the Balaro cattle grazers from western Uganda entered into the reserve for settlement, grazing, and cultivation. There has also been notable increase in the illegal activities, especially the charcoal burning, grazing, and illegal timber cutting and logging, targeting endangered Aphezelia africana and it is estimated that 2,000 people also reside in this Central Forest Reserve. It is this dire and escalating state of degradation in Mount K Central Forest that led the NFO management to engage the stakeholders in Yumbe and Koboko districts to plan and execute a durable strategy to remove all encroachers in the reserve before the onset of the rains in March-April 2020. The ongoing efforts to address the encroachment in Mount K Central Forest Reserve began in December 2018 when NFA team led by the executive director met district leaders in Koboko and Yumbe and appealed for support of the stakeholders to secure Mount K Central Forest Reserve from encroachment. Mr. Speaker, throughout 2019, continuous engagement with the local leaders was done, and the calls by His Excellency the President for encroachers to vacate the Central Forest Reserves and the wetlands. NFA gained the support of the leaders in the two districts to free the Central Forest Reserve from the encroachers. Mr. Speaker, by October 2019, joint field inspections involving Yumbe district officials and NFA was conducted in the Central Forest Reserve to enable the stakeholders appreciate the seriousness of the degradation. This led to the resolution that indeed all the encroachers should be persuaded to vacate. This was followed with several meetings to convince the stakeholders and plan for the best strategy to remove the encroachers. Right Honorable Speaker, on the 15th January 2020, Yumbe District Forest Protection Task Force, chaired by the Residence District Commissioner and comprising of all the members of the District Security Committee, sub-county leaders, community leaders, and NFA, was formed to steer the process of removing encroachers from the Central Forest Reserve. The task force has since sensitized community through the radio talk shows and community meetings to persuade them to voluntarily vacate the Central Forest Reserve. The task force also set a deadline of 15th February 2020 for voluntary vacation of the Central Forest Reserve, and any encroacher found in the Central Forest Reserve after that date will be arrested and prosecuted according with the National Forest 2003 and other relevant laws. Right Honorable Speaker, this process has been participatory, involving all the stakeholders in the district, and to date, no forceful eviction has been carried out. There is support to the process by the stakeholders, including the security agencies, that is the police and the UPDF, and the local government leaders who have continuously participated in all the field activities and meetings. Formation of the task force has helped to demystify the negative elements who are encouraging the encroachers not to vacate the Central Forest Reserve. Already several encroachers, estimated at 50% of the total number, have heeded the message to voluntarily vacate the Central Forest Reserve and have moved out of the reserve. As I mentioned above, most of these people are from the neighboring districts and South Sudan, who know where they came from. Over 15,000 hectares of the gardens have been abandoned as encroachers leave the reserve, paving way for restoration of the forest vegetation. Colleagues, Right Honorable Speaker, my prayer then that we all support this exercise that has taken more than 1 year to plan, engage the stakeholders, and peacefully execute. I also appeal to you, Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, to help in the effort to free other Central Forest Reserves from wanton encroachment done with impunity across the country. Mr. Speaker, I beg to submit.
Thank you very much. There is a matter from the person who would be entitled is the person raising the question. But for now, let me take the Honorable Semujo with this urgent matter, and then I make some announcement. We need to break now for lunch and come back we'll continue this afternoon. Oh, Yumbe. Oh, that's Yumbe, yes. We want Yumbe. Are you? Okay. Please come, Honorable. Yes. You know, the lights are too strong. I can't.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I want to also add my voice that thank God you have come back, and congratulations for winning, and thank you also for good performance.
You people, you make it sound like I had gone somewhere.
Yes.
I have not been anywhere. I've been in the building here.
Okay.
I have not been anywhere out of the country or in the village.
You were not visible, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I share the border with the sub-counties mentioned in Yumbe. My home is in Lodara sub-county. I have gone through the facts raised. But one thing which seems to have been left out is the fact that the people who have encroached on this forest are not only coming from outside. The population in these sub-counties has grown. The fact is, the people, in fact, if not 50% or more of the people who have encroached are people who are already in these sub-counties because of lack of enough land now for cultivation. So I want to tell the minister that it would be good to, I think, involve all stakeholders, including the members of parliament in both Yumbe and Koboko, because the issue of land is a serious issue. You cannot drive people away from where they are surviving to where? The question is, where are you going to relocate them? It is not true that the people are all coming from Maracha. Yes, they are there, but that's a negligible figure. The fact is, our people need land for living. They need land for survival. And therefore, the proposal that we need to evict them may not be a viable, especially for those who now live on that land. I beg to submit.
Honourable Minister.
Right Honourable Speaker and honourable colleagues, these are the dynamics we have in the country that we need to balance between conserving the environment for sustainable development and then allowing our people to go to open places or central forest reserves. I do appreciate and understand the dilemma our people are in. But the fact also is there, Right Honourable Speaker, that we need to preserve our central forest reserves. If we allow people to go, even illegally, to go and settle in all the forest reserves, we shall have nothing. We need to understand as a government that we are trying to see how people can settle where they are sustainably, rather than even encouraging people to go and encroach on the environment. This would be, actually, colleagues, it will be a big disaster for this country if we allow all our people to go in. We have seen people who are well-to-do even go into that in the forests, wetlands, all along the riverbanks. And the effect of climate change is here with us. And as leaders, we have a duty to rightly sensitize our people. I appreciate my brother saying we need to engage you, the members of parliament. But the engagement will be that we need to be firm and on the fact not to encourage our people to encroach on the environment. They need to be told the truth. We need to conserve this environment. Because if we are going to talk to, as leaders, to the people that, you see, you have nowhere to go into the forest. These are the problems. And my appeal rests here, Mr. Speaker, that colleagues, as members of parliament, as leaders in this country, we must stand firm even to our voters and tell them for a sustainable development, for their health, for their well-being. As a country, we must really keep away from encroaching on our natural resources. We can have a better place to engage our people, but not to encourage it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that is Mama Mabira coming out now in her true colors. But honorable members, last year's World Environment Day theme was, nature is speaking. Let us listen. And you see, the breakdown was that when nature speaks, it speaks in languages that causes a lot of destruction to people. It speaks in terms of floods, it speaks in terms of landslide, it speaks in terms of so many other things that are detrimental to human being. So whatever we do, we must listen to nature, because when it decides to speak, it can be very bad. That was the theme last year. That same spirit we should continue, and how to do the thing in a sustainable way that does not bring destruction to humans and also our environment. Honorable Semunjo.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. There are two things all my colleagues who have spoken today have done. The first is to congratulate you, and I want to join them in doing so. The second one was to welcome you back. You just a while ago explained that you were not anywhere, you were around. So I am hesitant to join them in welcoming you back, because you have said you have been around. I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. The matter I am raising is a matter of Miss Madena Amina, wife of former President Idi Amin Dada, and if you like, First Lady, former First Lady. Mr. Speaker, I met her a few days ago. We were in a hospital. I will leave out the details. And what concerned me as a legislator was that she was unable to pay a bill in a hospital. One of the children is sick. So I approached her because I heard people say so. And she said she was in contact when her husband died in Saudi Arabia with President Museveni, and with his encouragement she returned. She has had meetings with him, but also contact with government. The urgent matter is for government to go and help her before this country gets embarrassed that a wife of former president cannot pay bills. The substantive issues for which government should come here and explain is why is this former First Lady and the Idi Amin family are being treated differently. The family of late President Milton Obote, their houses were returned, and also under the Presidential Emoluments Act, they get their entitlement. Why is the family of Idi Amin being discriminated against to the extent that the former First Lady can't pay a bill of a few million shillings? Two, government, and I think the Minister for Presidents and Public Service, they will need to come to this Parliament and explain the implementation of that particular law, the Presidential Emoluments Act regarding former presidents. Do they select who they give? Is that at the discretion of the Minister for Presidents and Public Service? or the law is supposed to be implemented as it is, even if you're a president for 1 hour. Finally, Mr. Speaker, we also need to know why the houses belonging to Ms. Medina Amin that are currently occupied by a post office are not returned to her like houses of other people have been returned, including plot 10 at Prince Charles Drive in Koro, which by the way at one time acted as a command post under Idi Amin. So can the government first deal with the issue that is urgent, pick these bills because she has been denied her entitlement under the law, but two, explain why, if Mr. Speaker you're allowed, to tell us why and when this law is going to be implemented to enable Ms. Medina Amin get her entitlement under the Presidential Emoluments Act. I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I think, Honorable Leader of Government Business, the urgent matter is that there's somebody in hospital and needs help. Then the subsequent issues you can deal with in a more comprehensive way. Please, Government Chief Whip. He wants to respond to the matter now, public service?
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker, and I want to thank Honorable Semuju for having drawn our attention to this very important matter. What I know of President Museveni is that he committed himself to take care of the families of his foreign comrades. The question posed by Honorable Semuju as to what has happened to this family is pertinent. I know that the President has been talking about the sons and daughters and that they have been working together. But an entitlement is an entitlement. And unless the Minister of Public Service has the answer to what happened to the entitlement now, that will be very good. But the urgent matter of picking the bills does not need consultations. The President has been helping people, and I'm standing here to commit myself to pursue this very urgent matter to make sure that Mama Medina is assisted like the President has been giving a hand to many Ugandans. And I believe, Right Honorable Speaker, that once the President gets this information, he will have to come in and help on this immediate need of settling the medical bills. For the entitlement, I don't know whether Honorable Karubanga has something to say.
Please, public service.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I'd like also to join other colleagues in congratulating you for the success you achieved in Omoro County and the bigger northern area. Right Honorable, to add on what the Chief Whip has said, indeed this is a pertinent issue. I would like to say that the Minister of Public Service has been budgeting for the former leaders' families, and we've been taking care of the obligations as per the law. This issue in particular is new to us, and yes, as public service, and I would like to thank Honorable Semuju for this information. And as my Chief Whip has said, we are going to follow up. But as a ministry, we've been meeting all the obligations, and we budget for this item annually. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What is there to clarify, Honorable? Let's wait for a comprehensive thing so that we don't just we just talk about it easily. Yes. Can we wait? Because that's what I was going to say. That let the minister on this issue of former leaders Can you come and brief us what the processes are? Who have been the beneficiaries so far? And what is the plan for, it's something comprehensive, so that if we need to have a debate on it, this man, not just a response to a question. Please come with a ministerial statement so that you explain to us what the processes are and how that law is being implemented. And if there are gaps in the law, point them out so that this parliament can pick it up when we make changes in it. Would that be okay? So that is not just a response to a question, but a proper ministerial statement under the rules of procedure. Is that okay? Honorable Minister, are you going to make a ministerial statement on this matter?
I'm much obliged, Right Honorable Speaker. I promise we will come with a statement on this issue within 2 weeks.
Okay. Comprehensive one. Comprehensive one. Thank you. Honorable members, I'll cause an alteration on the order paper this afternoon to accommodate a statement of the Minister of Internal Affairs on some very urgent matter, list of missing persons. He says that the list is ready, is prepared to come this afternoon. I'm sure honorable members are interested in actually listening to this statement, so I called an alteration to accommodate the Minister of Internal Affairs immediately after the current statements are finalized. Honorable members, I suspend our proceedings for now, and we resume at, I think 2:30 would be reasonable. What time is it now? 2:30. House suspended till 2:30.